Nearly 3 months ago, several men in a rubber raft landed on the shores of a bustling financial capital as the sun began to set. They scattered in different directions, carrying backpacks with automatic weapons, hand grenades, and satellite phones. And within just a few hours, innocent citizens were lying in the street, buildings were burning, hostages feared for their lives, and the city was under siege. News of the attack quickly circled the globe, from the traditional media coverage to streaming video, blogs, text messages, and even Twitters. The attackers used that same technology not only to monitor the movements of police and rescue teams, but also to evade capture and to communicate with their leaders who were some distance away. It was an attack both highly coordinated and deceptively simple in its execution. And of course, I am speaking about Mumbai, in which terrorists killed more than 170 individuals and wounded more than 300. This type of attack reminds us that terrorists with large agendas and little money can use rudimentary weapons to maximize their impact. And it again raises the question of whether a similar attack could happen in Seattle, San Diego, Miami, or Manhattan. And the world in which we live has changed markedly in recent years, from the integration of global markets and the ease of international travel to the rise and the reach of the internet. But our perception of the world and our place in it also has changed. Last year, scientists captured the first pictures of what they believed to be faraway planets circling stars outside of our solar system. Astronomers have identified more than 300 of these so-called extrasolar planets in the past 13 years. And these modern-day explorers seek to confirm what they believe to be out there, to see what has not yet been seen. And these discoveries make our world seem at once smaller and yet infinitely more vast. And they leave us with the feeling that there is much more out there to be found. From a law enforcement and intelligence perspective, there is always more to be found. But we are not quite so optimistic about what we will discover. New threats, new technologies, new targets. And the universe of crime and terrorism stretches out infinitely before us, and we too are working to find what we believe to be out there, but cannot always see. In the aftermath of September 11th, our worldview was somewhat limited. We were primarily concerned with al-Qaeda's leadership and its structure. Today, we still face threats from al-Qaeda, but we must also focus on less well-known terrorist groups as well as homegrown terrorists. And we must consider extremists from visa waiver countries who are merely an e-ticket away from the United States. Our primary threat continues to come from the tribal areas of Pakistan and Afghanistan. But we are seeing persistent activity elsewhere, from the Maghreb and Sahel to Yemen. We are increasingly concerned with pockets of people around the world that identify with al-Qaeda and its ideology. And some may have very little or no actual contact with al-Qaeda. And yet fringe organizations can quickly gain broader aspirations and appeal. And should they connect with the core of al-Qaeda, from training to the planning and execution of attacks, the game becomes radically different. In several of the plots we have disrupted since September 11th, some have asked whether the individuals in question had the intent and the capability to carry out their plans. There will always be a tension between acting early to disrupt a plot in its planning stages and continuing to investigate until we are certain that the individuals in question are poised to attack. And in each case, that calibration will be different. If you take the planned attack against Fort Dix as an example, the men we convicted had engaged in target practice in the woods of Pennsylvania. They had watched al-Qaeda training videos. They had a map of the base and a plan to get in. And they had purchased semi-automatic weapons, albeit from an FBI sting operation. And like the Mumbai attackers, these men wanted to inflict as much damage as they could. And as the Mumbai attacks illustrate, the simplest of weapons can be quite deadly when combined with capability and intent. We must also recognize that events outside of our control may impact our national security. World politics often shape terrorist and criminal threats against the United States. Those same politics can alter the perception of the United States in the eyes of the international community, and what of civil unrest, resource scarcity, and a shifting global economy. A crisis in the Horn of Africa may well have a ripple effect in places such as Minneapolis, as we shall discuss in a moment. The fall of communism opened the door to a virtual army of cyber thieves. The integration of cultures around the world has facilitated state-sponsored espionage, a thriving child pornography market, as well as heightened gang activity. Now, admittedly, this overview sounds rather dire, and it does underscore the need for first-rate intelligence and strong international partnerships. Hockey great Wayne Gretzky was once asked how he consistently managed to be at the right place on the ice at the right time. And he said that while some players skate to where the puck has been, he skates to where the puck will be. And the same is true for those of us in the FBI. We need to know where the threat is moving, and we need to get there first. The tools upon which we built our reputation, generally as a law enforcement organization, the development of sources, surveillance, communication intercepts, and forensic analysis are the very same tools necessary for an intelligence service. And our challenge comes in developing the intelligence to disrupt an attack before the fact. To be effective, we must deliberately collect intelligence to fill gaps between our cases and gaps in our knowledge base. And that intelligence gathering will differ from city to city and state to state, just as criminal and terrorist threats differ. We must also determine if threats around the world translate to potential threats here at home. If there is a suicide bombing in Somalia, are we at greater risk? Do we understand the full extent of that threat? We must weigh the value of an early prosecution of select individuals against the benefit of collecting the intelligence necessary to dismantle the entire network. As Jonathan Evans, director of MI5, has said, knowing of somebody is not the same as knowing all about them. And he is right. In every case where an individual poses a threat, we must ask key questions. Where has this individual been? Who are his associates? Where are they now? What are they doing? And who are they talking to? This targeted intelligence gathering takes time. It requires patience, precision, and dedication, and it requires a unity of effort here at home and overseas. Intelligence enables us to see the unseen, to discover the new threats on the horizon, and yet even the best intelligence will not provide complete certainty given the nature and number of the threats that we face. And the question remains for us, how do we protect ourselves from threats that emanate overseas? We cannot close our borders or cut off the internet.